we're talking about the Prophet's younger years, what can be ascertained. And I was saying that I thought that you could, oh my God, we were going to save that seat for the, hello. We were going to save that seat for the young lady that stumbles in late so she doesn't disturb the class. Do you mind coming over here and sitting? So then we can sit her down here when she comes in. I apologize. Just take one of these. Or here's a good one, you know. Then when she comes in, we say, oh, sit there. Because she'll be late. It's as predictable as, I think, the sun in the morning. Anyway, we're talking about the Prophet. I'm sorry about that. Just so close this. I just caused enough interruption that wouldn't have been necessary anyway. Probably won't come today. So the Prophet, we were talking about his early life and that he could have come in contact with some of the materials that he came in contact with in these caravan trade. And one would have thought if he spent a good 20 years, 25 years in the caravan trade, that he would have met a lot of sophisticated people. And he would have met a lot of Jews and Christians too, as well as pagans and others. You know, he would have been a man of the world. He was not an immature child. He didn't have to go to the university to do or have the training he had. And Muslims say, as I tried to say, there's no training, and they say that this is because it's all miraculous, that this is the only real miracle in Islam, the Koran, that the Prophet was given. But you could also say that the Book of Mormon is a miracle. The Book of Mormon is a miracle. Keep that saved now. The Book of Mormon is a miracle. We're saving that seed for some. Hello. We're saving that seed for someone else. This is going to be a hopeless problem. I give up. For no reason, probably. But you can say the Book of Mormon is a miraculous book too. That what was the guy that got the name of this book? What was he called? Joseph Smith, the Book of Moroni. You know, he found it in a cave, supposedly, whatever. You know, many religions make that claim about their teachers, that this is a miraculous book that they found or that they've been dictated to or something like that, or it's a supernatural dictation. And that's fair enough for the believer, but I don't think it is going to travel very far outside the believer framework. Most people outside the believer framework of a given group don't really credit another group's miraculous dictations. So for an academic approach, treating all religions equally, we can sort of theorize, the believer doesn't have to agree with us, but we can theorize that this information did not have to come miraculously. I am not personally a believer in miracles, I told you that. Long ago, I felt miracles are not the stuff of what a modern university should deal with because, as I told you, modern university deals with cause and effect, nature of reality that can be observed, since miracles are an interruption in the natural process of cause and effect and are not in effect measurable. Therefore, they're without the realm of a modern academic university. They're better dealt with in churches, mosques, synagogues, and other religious institutions. So since we don't accept miracles in psychology, medicine, physics, engineering, we're not really going to insist on them in religious studies either. We're just going to say that people claim that miracles occur. That's fair enough. But we don't have to, in a religious studies department, necessarily credit the claims. Just we need to do is to present the claims. Okay, having presented the claim, on the other side of the ledger, one can understand how this came to be. And as I said, one can also accept the claim that he was not highly trained intellectually at a university. One can say that he was not, the Muslims put this in terms, he could not read or write. Again, I said that I'm not sure that he couldn't read or write in an elemental way, but he didn't need to read or write to do what we have here. Because you could be trained where someone told or read you passages from books, and having a good memory like you could do in this class, you could retain that material. And if you were a very good soothsayer sort of wordsmith, what we call a poet. The reason I don't call him a poet is because Muslims do not like to call him a poet. They like to say he's not a sha'ir. The term in Arabic for a poet is sha'ir. He's a nabi, a prophet, rasul, a messenger. He's not a sha'ir. Now, that's the religious claim. I, an academic, non-believing secular person, I admit, I think he is a poet. But if you don't want to use that word, use whatever word you want. The fact of the matter is, the material is rhythmic, often has a certain rhyme to it. We call it rhymed prose. To create material of that kind in a given language, we normally think of that's the department of poets. That's what poets do. I mean, that's what rap artists do. We call them poets in our world. That's what people do who have these skills. Now, last time I cited the example of the Kentucky or North Carolina or Tennessee mountains, Virginia mountains, particularly North Carolina and Kentucky and the Tennessee area. The people there are musicians. They're just born to be musicians, a lot of them. They're families of musicians. That's the whole point. They're families of musicians. They learn music from the time they're little children. They don't go to a school and learn it. They don't go to a conservatory. They don't go to a music program at Cal State Long Beach. They learn it in their house. How do those people, without being able to read music, play fiddles? And you see that some of them are just master fiddlers. How do they do it? It just comes in by ear, osmosis, hearing it, seeing it, and pretty soon they're copying their parents, and pretty soon they're playing it, you know, and the more they play it, the better they get, and the earlier they did it, the more expert they are. Okay? Well, the same with, if you're born into a family of people who had mastery of this sort of activity over a long period of time, over generations, soothsayers, let's call them. The Arabic word for soothsayer is actually the same word as the Hebrew word for priest. They say Muhammad is not a Kohen, though he was taken as a Kohen. In Hebrew it's Kohen. It's no different, same word. You're talking about the roots. All Hasidic languages are built on three-letter roots. They have, that's the one letter, that's the other letter, that's the third letter. You don't worry about the vowels. The vowels you just put in. You look at the roots to know what the meaning of the root is. So, for instance, KHN is priest, soothsayer. SLM, the basis of Islam, Muslim, and in Hebrew, what word? SLM. Shalom. Salam. Peace. So Islam is a verbal noun of a fourth form causative verb, meaning to cause, to make peace, to cause to surrender. So it's the causing of someone to be at peace with you, to surrender to you. So Islam actually means surrender. But you can figure out what the word means just by looking at the consonants and the way the vowels are put in. They indicate action, verbal noun, or some other form. And if you know the forms of the grammar, you can figure it out. The same in all Semitic languages, Arabic, Hebrew, Aramaic, all of them. They all work the same. That's why we bunch them under the title Semitic language. English works a little like that, but not quite as consistently like that. So, if you're in a family or a tradition of Kahans, let's say, and the Muslim historians say that the Prophet's cousin was what they call in Arabic a Hani. His name was Waraka. I think that's actually so. He was an uncle of the Prophet or a cousin. A Hanif is an Arabian holy person or charismatic religious teacher of some kind. that he comes from a tradition of that background in some part of his or his wife's family also adds to this idea that you can have native-born abilities that have been honed over generations. In the second part of the class, when we study the pre-Islamic Arab poetry, we'll see how much similar the Prophet is to some of these poets, particularly the later ones in the 5th and 6th centuries, the 5 and 600s, let's say. So, though he puts a religious tone to it and speaks about biblical subjects, on the whole, the form is not unsimilar to the pre-Islamic poetry preceding. So, are we to think that the angel spoke in pre-Islamic Arab poetic verse? That's, to my mind, stretching. I think he had training. And I don't agree with Muslims, it's my personal view. I don't think a book like this can emerge without training of some kind. I think there's training or natural reception of activity in a poetic, rhyme, prose, kahin type manner, soothsayer manner if you want. You know, in Delphi and the Greeks, the pronouncements were given in a kind of oracular prose, which were sort of like a rhymed prose. This is how oracles worked in the ancient world. If that ability is in your family, then you receive it automatically. So you didn't have to go to the university to learn that kind of poetic expression is what I'm trying to say. And I think half of the power of the Koran is the poetic expression, whether Muslims agree to it or not. It's the fact when someone recites the Koran, forgetting even the meaning of the words, they get intoxicated because of the rhythm and the meter and the way it's pronounced and the rhyme. So even a non-Muslim can hear it being recited and can see the power of the reciting. Forget what the words mean. They don't have to mean anything. So that's a skill. That's a skill that develops. Now, maybe it's miraculous. That's fair. I'm just giving you the opposite. That's the point. The other matter, the biblical stories, as I told you last time. The biblical stories, I think my experiment fails. I don't continue it in the future. That's all right. Leave her. There's no problem. It's no problem. The other one isn't going to come, it looks like. Leave it go. I give up. I apologize. I won't do it again. I should get a chair and paint it red or something like that. Anyway, the biblical stories, we'll see, as I've already told you in some of the stories, that he is not sticking to the straight biblical line on these things. Some stories he is and he tries to, or the angel tries to. Some stories show that he has not got a written document next to him, so that bears out the Muslim claim that he's not reading, that maybe he couldn't read, because if you wanted to get the story precisely, you would have this book next to you and you would read it and copy it down. He's retelling it, or the angel is retelling it, or the angel is reciting it to him in a retold way, however you want to say it. So there's a recitation. It's being retold, and to my mind, it's being retold either because it was heard imperfectly in the first place, or it was remembered imperfectly. That is, you know how memory plays tricks on you? You've heard it 30 years ago, and then you try to retell, even the story of a movie. If you've gone to the movie 20 years ago and you try to tell someone the story, you know, it just comes out really just half concocted and half accurate. Like my wife rented a movie the other day, and I was really, I guess not as polite as I should have been, because I said, I saw that on the stage, 40 years ago, and I don't remember that at all in the movie, what you're telling, what this movie is showing me. So it must have been there, but I never saw it, and I certainly can't remember it that way. So one's memory plays tricks on you, and particularly if it's a story. Suppose you were to tell me the Joseph story. Well, let's say you knew the Joseph story from school, or when you were in Sunday school or Bible class, or wherever you heard it. I failed. I was right to try to do that. Suppose you were trying to tell the Joseph story to somebody. Would you be able to give it word for word from the Bible, or would you start embellishing it and putting some of your own quasi-memories into it? I think ultimately it would be embellished by your own quasi-memories. And honestly, I know it's not nice to say, and if you're a Muslim, don't be angry at me. You haven't read the original Joseph story. I mean original, the one written 2,000 years before the Koran. So, you have to say something's written, or even maybe 1,500 years before the Koran. Something written 1,500 years before the Koran is known in the society at large. It's known, it's not an unknown story. And so the version of the Koran is just a later version of it. So you can't deny that the story is previously known in a different form. So if you don't know the previous form, you can't make this judgment. So if you haven't read the Bible Joseph story and have just heard doctrine, this is the angel's retelling of this story to Muhammad, well, that's a doctrine, that's a religious doctrine. That's not a personal, something you personally looked into, weighed, sought the evidence of, and looked at all the evidence, read all the evidence, and then drew your own conclusion from it. That's just the teaching that you had. So if you've read the Joseph story, you're already on your way to making a more clear judgment about that. And if you have read the biblical Joseph story, you will see that the Koran story looks like someone heard it and is retelling it from imperfect memory. That's what it looks like to someone. Now, if you've not looked to see in the original Joseph story, then you can't make that determination. You can say, no, you lie. The Koran is right, Jews and Christians lie, and that's the end of it. And I've heard preachers talk like that. You may not, but I was once in Hyde Park in London before all the trouble with the terrorism and stuff. And Hyde Park was a place all the speakers were talking, and there was a Christian preacher who was saying, it was up on a box, and he was saying, and Jesus does this, and then there were some Muslim guys who were living in London in the audience, and everything he would say, they would get out, you lie, and Jesus is the Son of God, you lie, and I knew where they were coming from, because in the Koran, the prophet does say that Jews and Christians have introduced lies into scriptures, which is fair enough. I'm not saying that they haven't. But the point is that it was just funny, but it isn't sufficient, to just yell out, you lie, on the basis of your information. You have to experiment and see if, in fact, that is a lie. You have to weigh the evidence, like any normal, at least in a college. So, I know that goes against some people's beliefs in this room, and I've tried to be kind as I can. But my conclusion is, the prophet could and probably did hear stories in the caravan trade. I would even go personally further. I think he was probably in some sort of training situation somewhere, in a kind of, wherever it was, because he shows that he is aware of groups. And I'll show you where he shows that. He's aware of groups whom he calls people of the book, who are involved in midnight training sessions in caves, and he thinks that they're good. He thinks that he speaks appreciatively of them. I think it's in Surah 3. He shows awareness of other groups that are doing similar things to him that he's doing, and that he considers to be laudable. And it seems to me to indicate that he could once have been an adept of some kind, an adept of a Jewish-Christian group, of a Jewish-type group, or a Christian-type group, some group where he received some training, if not literal, oral, and elsewhere. And I personally believe that, but that's my own personal belief, and I am not asking you to believe that. You can have the other normal belief, the normal belief. This is all. The miracle is he had no training, he was unlettered, unschooled, and this came to him in a supernatural way. Those are the two positions. You take your pick. Okay, so having been successful in the caravan trade, coming from the Quraysh tribe, very well placed, somewhere around 40 years old, having been born around the year of the elephant. I'm going to say one thing more about the year of the elephant before we get into the Quran. As you know, we have the Surah of the Elephant, and the year of the elephant was, what happened in the year of the elephant? The Ethiopian elephants appeared at Mecca, but in some way Mecca was miraculously saved. So we say, the Prophet, or Muslims say, was born in the year of the elephant. if you go out to the American plains in the last century or the previous century, people would say, you know, when did that event occur? Oh, 3 years before the big snow. Or 2 moons before the, you know, big hunt. Or 5 years before the lightning fell, or something like that. Oral dating is like that. It's not precise. It's not precise. So an event that stands out in the memory of the people who would serve this data would be the fact of the appearance of the Ethiopian elephants at the gates of Mecca and the unsuccess of that campaign. So it's not surprising that they identified the date of the prophet's birth year around that time. They don't even say what time in that year, but around the time. But I just think that's an approximation. I don't, it's like saying 2 years before the big rain. I don't think it's a precise dating, the year of the elephant. Now, a Muslim would say it is, but I personally, they say he's 40 years old when he begins his activities therefore, because that appearance of the Ethiopian elephants at Mecca can more or less be dated. To me, he sounds like a younger man than 40 years old. The first revelations sound quite a bit younger to me. Someone in his 30s, early 30s, mid-30s, but not someone in his 40s, to my mind. But, so I'm not sure about the dating. You'll have to decide that for yourself. Now, that is the date. It's around 40 years old when he gets his first visions. Now, his first visions are to be found in the second part of the Koran, the latter part. Since, as I told you, this is arranged more or less by order of length. These occur like around, from around chapter 73 onwards, Surah 73 onwards. The enshrouded one, the cloaked one, I'll get to those in a moment. But officially speaking, Muslims would say the first revelation to the Prophet is this Surah 96, the clock. So here, chronologically speaking, it's very early. The placement in the Koran is almost at the end. So you can't go according to the placement of the Koran for chronology. Probably you can go more for the importance of the verse in terms of the placement. Certainly the length, and the most weighty ones are verse. Therefore, the weighty ones, because his doctrine is more developed in the later surahs, are at the beginning of the Koran, and the doctrine is more developed. In other words, Islam as we know it is in the, not the early surahs, but the first surahs of the Koran. And the later surahs don't have a completely developed doctrine of Islam, if you get what I'm trying to say. You understand? The doctrine, the later surahs, these early surahs, that's complete. The Meccan surahs actually are probably earlier, but not fully formed doctrine yet. This clock then, in my Koran, I don't know about yours, says revealed at Mecca. Is that what yours says, revealed at Mecca? Which Koran do you have there? Which one? Whose is it? Is it Pickthall? Well, we have different. What? Who?
It's in the library, or another library in the bookstore.
Yeah. Funny. Yeah. Well, I don't know. I ordered this Pickthall one, but obviously that's not the one that came in. Anyway, does yours say revealed at Mecca? No, it doesn't. See, mine has a little note here, revealed at Mecca, because the editor put that in there. I don't know. I ordered. Had 20 copies of this Pickthall one. I don't know what that one is. Let me see that one. That must be from the other course. There's another person teaching. Really? Huh. Yeah, well, they probably. I don't even know this one.
It says it on the sticker.
Yeah, well, I didn't write the sticker. But anyway, that's the bookstore doing it. What does it say on the sticker?
Koran.
It says Pickthall Koran?
Yeah. I'm
And it's not Pickthall, it's Rodwell. Anyway, let me just get the difference in the reading. I don't mind, any Koran will do, but I mean, so we're not using exactly the same Koran, realize that, so that it's just a translation. In any event, Muslims say the Koran can't be translated. It's not a Koran if it's not an Arab. Read me your first line there of 96.
Recite the Lord in the name of thy Lord.
And the next one?
Read it, man, from clouds of blood.
So it's similar. Mine says, read in the name of thy Lord who createth man from a clot. So since I don't have yours and you don't have mine, we're going to have to follow mine. But if it differs appreciably than yours, stop me, okay? Yeah, that wasn't the Koran that I ordered. As you see, it's supposed to say Pickthall, and it's Rodwell. So I have no idea. Does anyone have a Pickthall or always have Rodwells? Well, Pickthall says the meaning of the glorious Koran. What's the title of that book? The Koran. You see, a Muslim would say you can't call a translation the Koran because it's just an approximation of the Koran. So Pickthall was a British convert to Islam, and he was very careful not to call it a Koran. So he said the meaning of the glorious Koran, so that he wouldn't think that that was a Koran, because Muslim religious scruples say it's not translatable into a different language, it's not a Koran. I think that the Jews would have been smart to follow that procedure with their Bible, and they wouldn't have gotten in all the trouble of everyone ripping off their Bible and using it against them, which is what has happened to them historically, that they allowed the Bible to be translated in Egypt, called the Septuagint, and then other groups came along who actually didn't like them, used the Bible, and used it against them. But one thing the Muslims were wise to do is they didn't let any hostile groups use the Koran against them. And therefore they're much more successful than the Jews in terms of the protection of their holy book. I don't know anyone who's exploited the Koran to make a new religion out of it. You see what I'm trying to say? Christianity did that. And even though the meaning of Christianity is nothing like what the Old Testament says, and that's honestly true if you're fair-minded about it, they've used the Old Testament to build Christianity upon. And you see, they haven't been able to do that with the Koran because the Koran forbade it from the beginning. No translations. No translations. And sometimes Muslims are very wise in the things that they do to protect themselves, and this is one of the things that has been very successful for them. Anyway, we've translated it. Createth man from a clot of blood. Read or recite. And the Koran is actually called. Quran means to read, to recite, the recital. K-R-A sound in Arabic and in other Semitic languages means reading or reciting. Quran is another version of K-R-A. That means reciting of the recital. Reading if you prefer. Anyway, this is Ikra, read. And thy Lord is most bounteous, I'll just get on, who teacheth man by the pen, teacheth man what he knew not. Man is rebellious, he thinketh himself independent. Unto the Lord is the return, or Allah is the return, line 8. Do you see him who persuadeth faithful man when he prayeth? Has you seen the one who lies on the guidance of Allah or enjoins piety? Have you seen he who denies Allah's guidance and is wayward? Is he not unaware that Allah seeth? Nay, but if he sees not, we will seize him by the forelock, the lying, sinful forelock, and let call upon him his henchmen. We will call the guards of hell. Nay, obey not you him, but prostrate yourself and draw near, that is, unto Allah. That is the first verse. Now, in English, it really sounds like nothing. But if someone were to recite that in Arabic to you, it would sound really exciting. Anyone here know Arabic this by heart? Can recite it for us in Arabic? Anyone have an Arabic Koran that they can read to us here? Go ahead, give it to us in Arabic. Let's see how good you are. Sorry to embarrass you, but go ahead.
It's all right. I'm not going to read it like they do, but I'll read it.
All right, they have a different style of Koran readers, don't they?
Yes.
They kind of proclaim it, don't they? So they have actually even inflate its poetic feeling in the way they, give it a huge sort of significance, even beyond what it normally. So go ahead, read it.
It says, اقرأ باسم ربك الذي خلق خلق الإنسان من علق.
Now wait now. Alladhi halak. Insan, what was the last bit there? Insan, you said?
خلق الإنسان من علق.
See, alak, halak, it's rhyme prose. You can hear it, even in, you don't know the Arabic. And that's what's missing here in the English, the rhyme. It's like hearing rap music without the rap, you see? And that's why you don't think it's, oh, that's nothing. Until you hear the skill of the author in the way the rhythm goes. You see, go ahead. Sorry to interrupt.
اقرأ وربك الأكرم الذي علم بالقلم.
See, Akram Kalam. It's a meter with rhyme. Go ahead.
علم الإنسان ما لم يعلم كلا إن الإنسان ليطغى أن رآه استغنى إلا إلى ربك الرجعى أرأيت الذي ينعى عبدا إذا صلى أرأيت إن كان على الهدى وعمر بالتقوى أرأيت إن كذب وتولى.
Yeah, see, it's pure poetry. And that's why people like it so much. So we read the meaning and what it said. I mean, for a Westerner, well, not much has been said here. But then you hear it with the rhythm and the rhyme, and then it gets hold of you. So there's skill there. Am I wrong? I mean, there's skill. Now the question is where the skill came from. Is it heavenly skill or earthly skill? You'll have to decide that. But thanks a lot for reading. Nice reading. And it makes a big difference, doesn't it, to read the Arabic and then read the poor English translation, right? So, fortunately, we in English were lucky when the translation of the Bible was made in English later in the English version, in the King James version. They put some of the highest Shakespearean English into that. So actually, sometimes in the Bible, as the King James version that we have, it's even more eloquent often than the Hebrew, because the English is so high and so well done that in fact the Bible writer should be pleased to have it. It's so good in terms of English language. So, but that's not the case with this translation you see at the corner. As far as meaning, I don't see a lot of meaning in this particular verse. Meaning-wise, it's secondary to the rhythm, but I think there's not a lot of meaning that someone's going to punish someone for being froward, basically. Well, go ahead. Do you see meaning more than that? Correct me. No, correct me. Go ahead.
No, sorry, I'm not listening.
No, but in this particular, we'll see meaning. But in this particular verse, it's not packed with meaning. You won't say it. All right. I don't want to get you in trouble. So. No. I know. Now we can get some good meaning out of other early surahs. So, for instance, if we go back now to where I said. Surah, well, let's go back to Surah, what did I say, where was a good place to start? Here, for instance, 70, here, the cloaked one, the enshrouded one. I think these are more like the first surahs of the Quran. Because these portray the Prophet in his all-night vigils in caves that Muslims said that he participated in. So, for instance, Surah 73 here. And we can also get the style of the early surahs as different from the later surahs. This is a later surah in the Quran, but an early surah chronologically speaking. You understand what I'm saying? Okay. We'll do the English here. Clearly, if it's an early surah, it was revealed at Mecca. And a later surah would be revealed at Medina. This is a Meccan surah. We call it a Meccan surah. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful. O thou wrapped in your raiment or cloak, keep vigil the night long, save a little. What's said in the first line? Keep vigil, all night vigils. It's autobiographical. It's showing what he's doing. He's in a cave, according to the biographers, and he's in some sort of spiritual activity, all night vigils in the cave. Half thereof, abate a little thereof, add a little thereto, and chant the Quran in measure. Quran, the name for the recital of the Quran that we're doing here. For we charge you with the word of weight. Lo, the vigil of night is a time when impression is keen and speech more certain. So if you're up at night all night long, you have a clearer way of thinking and your speech more certain. By the day you have a chain of business. So remember the name of your Lord and devote yourself with complete devotion. Lord of the East, Lord of the West, there is no God save him, no God but Allah. So choose you him alone for your defender and bear patiently what they utter and part from them a fair leave taking. Leave me to deal with the deniers, the lords of ease and comfort, and do you just take it easy on them a while. In other words, I'll take care of them, God speaking, or the angel speaking. Lo, with us, plural, are heavy fetters and a raging fire. Raging fire, line 12, hellfire. And food which choketh the partaker, and a painful doom. 13, well 12 is a raging fire, 13 is a painful doom. And now we get big message of the early service. The day. What is the day? The day when the earth and hills rock and the hills become a heap of running sand. And lo, we have sent you unto you a messenger, a witness against you, even as we have sent unto Pharaoh a messenger. A messenger, the prophet is a messenger. He has a message. Who went to Pharaoh with a message? Moses. So he knows the Bible stories, or the angel knows the Bible stories, and he's comparing the prophet to Moses, and he's sending him the way he sent Moses. But Pharaoh rebelled against the messenger, not named, but it's Moses, whereupon we seized him, that is Pharaoh, with no gentle grip, we, the angels and the heavenly host. Then now, if you disbelieve, how will you protect yourselves upon the day? The day, we're back to the day. What day is that he's talking about? The day of judgment, as we'll hear. The judgment day. Now, we know about the judgment day in what religions? Judaism and Christianity. It's already a known concept. It's not something new in the Koran. In fact, he's drawing from Jewish Christian tradition here. But he's putting his own poetic spin on it. Now, I don't think if you studied Hinduism or Buddhism, you would come to a passage saying, and who will tell you what the day of judgment is like? What will the day be upon which everyone is judged, when the dead are raised from the graves and so on? This is all Judeo-Christian doctrine here. The Muslim says it's miraculous. The outsider says he's got training. So again, we're a mixed group here. Some are Muslim here, and some are Judeo-Christian background. So, I mean, you're just going to have to be tolerant of each other. I mean, the Muslim has the one view, the Judeo-Christian would have another view. Because, I have to be frank, on the one hand, most Muslims don't read Judeo-Christian work. Mostly it's forbidden, and they're not curious very much about it. So you're not in a position to say whether it has a Judeo-Christian origin or not. To you, it's a miraculous origin, but someone from a Judeo-Christian background can say, oh, well, we're familiar with that. We know what that is. It's in this book, it's in this book, it's in this book, it's in this book. And by the way, it runs all through the Dead Sea Scrolls, doesn't it? We worked on the scrolls. In fact, there's one document that speaks of the Day of Judgment from Cave 1 called the Commentary on Habakkuk. It talks about the Day of Judgment. In Arabic, Yom HaDin, in Hebrew, Yom HaMishpat, Day of Judgment. In any case, as the prophet describes it, what is that day like? When the earth and hills rock and the hills become a heap of running sand. These are the things that really appeal to the believer. These images of the Day of Judgment, of the hills becoming a heap of running sand, and the earth rocking. But you'll find this imagery. You'll find this imagery in Paul. Same imagery if you look. And you'll find it elsewhere in some of the what we call the intermediate books of the Old Testament, the ones between Judaism and Christianity. You'll find this imagery there, almost the very same imagery actually. I can't put you an exact passage at the moment, but it's there. And but the prophet pushed it further, used it further. The angel used it further. And then, of course, something unique to him here, as he describes it, and which, of course, is very striking. That day which will turn the children gray. What do you have as a translation? That one you have there? It's line 17. What do you have? Yeah, okay. Whatever. That day that will turn, well, that describes it more. In other words, what happens on that day? It's so fearsome, so overwhelming, that even the children who have normal colored hair, as we would call it, their hair will turn gray in a moment. That's how frightening the day of judgment is. The day that will turn the children gray, or they make their hair gray, or make them gray-headed. That's a striking image. It's a poetic image. And again, to my mind, an outsider view, it shows an extremely able poet, or visionary, or if you prefer, a prophet. It doesn't necessarily have anything to do with a divine recitation, though it can, if that's what your view of it is. So you'll have to choose between that. I made that point enough. Let's leave it. You're the final decision. You make all of those decisions for yourself. The heaven is rent asunder. His promise is fulfilled. Lo, this is a reminder that him who will then choose a way unto his Lord. The term of a way. It's all through early Christianity and later Judaism, particularly the Dead Sea Scrolls. The way in the wilderness of John the Baptist. The book of Acts, Christianity called a way by several people in the book of Acts. The Dead Sea Scrolls, the way in the wilderness, the way of walking in the way of holiness, the perfection of the way, the perfect of the way. There's hundreds of references in the Dead Sea Scrolls to the way. Making a way for Jesus in the New Testament, if you like. Muhammad here. So again, if you haven't read those things, it wouldn't mean anything to you. But if you have read all that, then you put it all together and you say you see a common influence, interaction. Who will choose a way, and he repeats that over and over again, choosing a way unto your Lord. Lo, the Lord knoweth that you keep vigil sometimes 2/3 of the night. Look at the Dead Sea Scrolls, community rule. They were supposed to keep vigil, all-night vigils in the community rule. I think, what is it now, 2/3 of the nights of the year, or 1/3 of the nights of the year? I forget what it was, but something like that.
2/3 of the nights of the year?
Yeah, 2/3 of the nights of the year. It's all written out there in the Dead Sea Scrolls 600 years before this. This is 2/3 of the night, or half a third, but, again, the parallel there. And the scrolls are found in caves. People, the scrolls were in caves. Some of the old documents call them the cave people. There are all kinds of correspondences that if you know about these things, you'll see it. If you are unfamiliar with it, same as a believer in our day who may not be familiar with these other things, wouldn't be aware of it. Well, that's what strikes me, again, as a scholar of these things. There's so many interrelationship. A Muslim would say, well, yeah, of course, because this comes out of, he says he's the seal of the prophet. He's the last of the prophets. He should draw on the previous prophets. That would be the response. So, I mean, you have to weigh this for yourself, what you've found. I'm just giving you data to look at it with. Anyway, but look at this other statement. Half or third thereof, as do a party of those with thee. So, is that what yours says in line 20? As do a party of those with thee? What do you have?
And it says, in the truth thy Lord knoweth that you pray as almost 2/3 or half,
Yeah.
as do a part of thy followers. So
Okay, well, okay, that's the same. So, but I like a party of those with you because I think it's more vivid. In any case, he's not alone in the caves. And it doesn't, I don't think it says followers in the original Arabic. I don't think the word follower is in the original Arabic. We can see, but I'm sure it isn't. What does it say?
It does say follow.
Say it, read it. Read the Arabic.
It says من الذين معك, which means
Those with you. It doesn't mean followers. So this has those with you too. But I'm saying it doesn't say that they're necessarily followers or leaders. They're with you. Yeah. I mean, Imach is with you. It doesn't say followers. Let's be precise. It says people are with him. Now, they may be his followers, or he may be with them, or vice versa, or whatever. What I'm trying to say is that's a very interesting, we want to fudge the text. We want to be fair here. That's a very interesting, so I think your translation's already fudged it a bit. I like the precision of Pickthall, that's why I've chosen him. And I wish they'd ordered Pickthall, but they didn't. So it gets us into this difficulty.
It says in English, it says the same thing.
Yeah, yeah. Who's the translator? Is the same as? Who's the translator? Ali Yusuf. Yeah. It's a tremendous little note because it tells you something about the biography of the prophet. That's very autobiographical. He's in the caves. He's not alone. He's with others, whether they're followers or they're with him or whatever. He's with others. And that is something what I'm saying. I have a feeling that this was going on. It isn't just him who was doing this. That there were others involved in these kind of spiritual activities. What they were doing in caves, I can't tell you. But some kind of spiritual activity was going on in caves in this period, at this time, in this region, among a group of people who were adepts of some kind of activity. Now, as the prophet comes forward here, you'll see that basically it's Judaistic activity that's going on. And that's why I think it's sectarian Jewish groups that have come down, like the Dead Sea Scroll groups, like the tribes that are in Medina, and have been like the two rabbis we saw earlier, the ones who converted Asad Kamil and Thu Nuwas in the previous century and so on. And there are people like that going here. And the prophet's message, you see, is very Judaistic until Medina. When he gets to Medina, a change occurs because he actually meets more Jews there and he gets into difficulty there. Whether he likes them or not, we don't want to say, but the point is he gets into trouble, as all new teachers would with people who think they already know it. And therefore he gets angry and things change and he becomes negative towards them. And you see, originally, it seems, Jews pray 3 times a day. Not most Jews that I've ever met, but the religious ones do. And that seems to have been his original custom. And they prayed towards Jerusalem. And that seems to have been his original custom. But we'll see in the Surah of the Cow, in the Medina period, Surah 2, that he changes it after he has these troubles. He says, now we won't pray in that direction towards Jerusalem anymore like they do. So originally it's pretty normal Judaistic activity. And that's why people say that it's in Medina that Islam is created. And that's why Islam itself says it's the flight to Medina that we base our calendar upon. Because here in Mecca, it's not yet Islam. It's only a quasi-Judaism here. It's only a Judaistic sort of thing that you'll find in many of the documents that I just told you about, like the Dead Sea Scrolls. It's not a quasi-Christianity, because there are no supernatural God-men or miracles or things of that kind running through it. There's just the day of judgment and preparing a way towards your Lord. So we can start to outline some of the ideas of the early surahs right from these chapters. In any case, you recite the Koran, and this little thing here sounds later. While others travel around in search of Allah, are fighting the cause of Allah, and pay the poor due. This is a capsule description of Islam as we get it in the Surah of the Cow, which is why my discussion here says some have put this in the Medinese period, because this later bit seems to be a later type of piece of writing than the others, but it's hard for you to see that. We'll just leave it at that. But this capsule description we'll see in the Surah of the Cow about 4 different times about what Islam is, and that's what we have here. And so, whatever good you send before you, your souls will surely find it with Allah, better and greater in your reward. Seek forgiveness in Allah, Allah is forgiving, merciful. Okay, that's an early surah, reflecting the fact that he's in caves with a group of other people, whoever they were, his followers or people that he's involved with, and they're doing some kind of spiritual exercise all night or most of the night in caves. And he compares himself to Moses here, or he's compared to Moses. So what do we have here? We have important doctrine, the day of judgment, the judgment day, the day on which the children's hair will turn white. We have I think, a warning. A warning about that day and the fact related to that he's a warner. Or a messenger. What's his message? A warning. That's his message. Warning about the last day. Let's see. Oh, and one last thing. Raging fire is basically what Christians and Jews would call hellfire. So three very familiar things. Messenger, warner, with a message, warning about the last day, the judgment day, and hellfire. That's basically what we know about here. Forget that little other thing, the capsule description of Islam. Most of us, I think, also think that's later, but it may be earlier, but it doesn't accord with any of the other early surahs. Here's another early surah, the next one, the cloaked one. Again, called the cloaked one because he's wrapped in a cloak because it's cold in the cave. And according to the Muslim biographers, his wife, after he had his first revelation, he came home shivering, and then she wrapped him in a cloak because he was cold. From, when you have a shocking experience or you're upset or you've had some kind of uplifting episode, that happens. Oh, you enveloped in your cloak. Again, back to the idea of being in the cave and in a cloak. Early surah, almost from the beginning. Arise and warn. There we go. A warner. Same thing. Thy Lord magnify your raiment, purify pollution, show not favor. Seek the Lord, be patient. Any of you, by the way, have read the letter of James in the New Testament know that that's the basic recommendation of the letter of James. Be patient until the coming of the Lord. It's in chapter 4 of the letter of James. Until what? When the trumpet is sounded. I'm going to tell you a little secret in a moment. And you will get angry at me, but I will still tell it to you. Surely that day will be a day of anguish. That's the day of judgment, and previously he said it was a day of a painful doom. Yeah, rage. I forgot to put a painful doom. All these are related. Here, he says that day will be a day of anguish. Same as a painful doom. Day of anguish. Painful doom. So that's the judgment day again. Not of ease for disbelievers. Now wait a minute. I thought I'd tell you a little secret. I know you don't like to hear about other religions, but this is a religious studies department, so I'll tell you about them. I mean, those who are not believers in the class don't mind, but those who are do. But I warned you of that in the beginning. I'm not going to worry about whether you like it or not. We're just going to go ahead and teach what things seem relevant, what seems to be relevant. This is the season that the Jews celebrate the so-called New Year, what they call, and there are Jews involved in this, so there's no reason we can't speak about that. We're not worried about modern political problems. That's not our problem. That's modern politicians' problems. Rosh Hashanah, which means the head of the year, or the beginning of the year. It isn't really the head of the year because it's the 7th month. It's the first day of the 7th month. And if you look in the Old Testament, you'll see it says the first day of the 7th month, that's a holy day. On that day you shall do no work, you shall rest. That's coming up, by the way, next Thursday, or next Tuesday, I think. I don't know what day, but next week sometime. Big problem for those people who think they should observe what the Old Testament tells them to do in terms of classes and things. We'll see about that kind of stuff later. But no one really knew the meaning of what this first day of the 7th month was. They call it the New Year because they start the prayer cycle, the reading cycle from the Bible anew every year at that time. It was in the temple, the time that the priests began the whole cycle of reading started over again. In fact, it accords with our beginning of our school year, pretty normal, and that's basically why it's called the New Year, but it isn't really the New Year. It's the 7th month, first day. 7 is very important. number for biblical people, and in the Bible it's always a very holy number, and we can talk about that sometime if you have time. But what the spin that the Jews put on it was the judgment day. That it was the judgment day. And you know, on those series of holidays in the 7th month, there are 3 of them, because it's a holy month for the Jews, the same as Ramadan. The 8th month is a holy month for Muslims. The Jews have the 7th month basically as a holy month. The first day starts, then they prepare themselves. The 10th day is the Day of Atonement, where they all fast to get their sins, and then they have that later festival, Tabernacles as Christians refer to it, where it commemorates the giving of the Torah to Moses in the Sinai. Okay, so it's a holy month, the same as Ramadan commemorates the giving of the Koran to the Prophet and so on in the 8th month. These things have just been basically revised, transferred, but more or less the same. But what do the Jews say that this first day of the first month, 7th month is? What? They blow a horn on that day. What do they call that horn? The shofar. They blow this ram's horn. Of course, it was before modern trumpets and things, so they used to use horns. I mean, in the Bhagavad Gita that we're reading in another class, they blow conch shells, you know, whatever you can blow. Then they blew ram's horns because that made a noise, and it was like a horn. And what are they doing? They're preparing for the judgment day. That's why they have the Day of Atonement later on. It's the horn, it's the trumpet, it's the ram's horn being blown for the judgment day. That's exactly what he's talking about here. Exactly what he's talking about here. In the view of all these ancient texts, there was a trumpet to be blown. That's why the Jews are blowing the ram's horn. They're not blowing the ram's horn because they like blowing ram's horns. They're blowing the ram's horn in imitation of the call to the judgment day. And that's what he's talking about here. The trumpet shall sound, and surely that day will be a day of... He knows all the ideology of the trumpet sounding, of the horn being blown, and so on, to greet the coming of the judgment day, so that the graves will open, and the dead will rise, and then be judged, and so on, and some will go to heaven, and some will go to hell, and whatever the ideology was. All that he understands, he knows, or the angel knows, or someone has taught him, or the angel has taught him. So I just want to show you the parallel with where we are today in the present calendar, because I'm sure you're hearing about this in the news to some extent at the moment. And it's the Judgment Day. What this Rosh Hashanah is the prelude to the Judgment Day, which is why, that's how they've interpreted it, and that's why they blow the trumpet or the ram's horn. Okay, let's go back to the Koran here. So this Judgment Day, what is it going to be like? Same as we had in the previous surah, not something easy, but the good ones, the sons abiding in his presence, whatever, something about smoothness here. Anyway, for lo, he hath been stubborn to our revelations, and on him I will impose, there it is, a fearful doom. A fearful or painful doom. Again, same concept. For he did not consider, so self-destroyed was he when then he planned. Destroyed is he in how he planned. Then he looked and he frowned and he showed displeasure and turned away in pride. And he said, this is no one else but magic. These recitals are magic from old. And speech of mortal men. I guess that's what I'm saying. How shall I fling him? He will be gone, flung into the burning. We have the burning again. Here it is, the burning. He shall be flung into the burning, the fire. And what shall I convey to them what the burning is? Now a description of hellfire. Leaveth naught, spareth naught, shriveleth the man. And in it are 19 guardian angels, wardens of the hellfire. We made a stumbling block for those who do not believe, and those who do believe, their faith will be increased. So on along the line here, and the believers will not be in doubt. And what does Allah mean by this? Those who do not believe, they have a disease in their hearts. And Allah sendeth astray whom he will, and whom he doesn't, he guideth. Know that the host of the Lord will save him. This is naught else but a warning, a reminder. Nay, by the moon in the night, when it withdraweth, why the moon in the night? Because midnight, all-night vigils in caves. In the dawn, when it shineth forth, and the one who is greatest, a warning. There's the warning. I'll put it up again, same warning. Unto him who will advance and hang back, every soul is a pledge for its own deeds. Its own deeds. Works, works, works. The Koran is a book of what we would call in Christianity works righteousness. It is not faith that saves you, as Paul would say in the New Testament in his letters. It's the James approach, works. Don't you know, O foolish man? Abraham was saved by works, and that's how we're saved. And Abraham was the friend of God. We'll hear it all in the Koran. It's the letter of James. Abraham is the friend of God in the Koran. Abraham is saved by works. Works are what you do in this life that you send before you up to heaven. This is works righteousness with a vengeance. There is no Paulinism in this book. It is all works Jamesian, if you want to call it Jamesianism. Now, I'm very big on James because I wrote a whole 1,000-page book on him. If you want to ever read it, it's out in Penguin paperback. We'll get it off of Amazon.com real cheaply. But I want you all to realize, Christian believers, other believers, Muhammad is total Jamesian Christian in the sense of only works save you. You see? So what has brought you to this burning? Here, every soul is a pledge for his own works. Forget deeds, say works. Save those who will stand on the right hand. The right hand go to the blessing and the gardens, paradise. Why is gardens paradise? Because in Hebrew the word pardes is garden. P-A-R-D-E-S-S is garden. It's the word that was used for paradise. Therefore he speaks of paradise. I don't know in Arabic the actual spelling of the word paradise. What's the spelling? How does that pronounced in Arabic there? How is the gardens pronounced in line 40 there? In the Arabic, line 40.
40?
Yeah, line 40. Say those will stand on the right hand in gardens, they will ask one another. You see the Arabic there? I have an Arabic corner somewhere. Anyway. Doesn't matter. How do you say paradise in Arabic? Huh?
Jannah.
Okay, Jannah?
Jannah.
Spell it in English for me.
J-A-N-A-H.
K-A-N-N-A-H. Okay. And gardens, line 40. Did it say gardens there in your corner? Huh? No, I know, okay.
Okay, but you know it says gardens.
The Arabic says you don't know. Okay, doesn't matter. I'll look at it myself one day when I have a moment more time. Concerning the guilty, that is the ones who are going to the left, who brought you to this burning? Were you not those who prayed but did not feed the poor? You know there's works here. Didn't you deny the day of judgment, Yom Adin? Till the inevitable came. Now there it is. I told you. It is totally anti-Pauline, if you know about Pauline theology. The mediation of no mediators will avail you. There it is. It's black and white. Jesus Christ will not save you. That's what he's saying there. Period. There's no mediation for you. Don't go up to the basketball hoop and cross yourself before you shoot your foul shot. There is no mediation that is going to help you here. That may help concentrate your mind, but Jesus is not going to intervene here on your behalf. What will intervene on your behalf? Your works that you sent before you in this life or the next. Works righteousness. And he will repeat that several times. I want to see how stark this is. And it's an actual attack on Pauline Christianity, though you wouldn't realize it if you didn't know what Pauline Christianity was. It's my job to tell you what it is so you know what is being attacked here. Why now turn away from the admonishments as they are frightened, asses fleeing from a lion? Nay, but everyone of them desire he should be given open pages. Nay, verily they fear not the hereafter. Verily, lo, this is an admonishment, a warning. So whosoever may heed, and that will not heed, Allah willeth it. He is the fount of fear, he is the fount of mercy. Now, the rest is pretty clear. And so basically we have the same doctrines again. Painful doom, day of judgment, warning, messenger, hellfire, burning, fearful doom, part of it. This is part of the trumpet blow before the day of judgment. So, and then, of course, the one I didn't put in here, the mediation of no mediators will avail. So there's no mediation. No saints will help you. You know, no one is going to save you but you yourself. Stark. Works right. I'm going to just keep you a little longer. That's got, you know, all this gab I do gets us a little bit off the theme here. Let me just read you another one here. And these are really, here's a great one. I like this one here, 81. This is a quick one. And it's clearly early surah in that it's short, quick images, one after another. This is actually what intoxicates the believers, and maybe we'll read this in Arabic next time. But listen, in the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, another Meccan surah, the overthrowing. When the sun is overthrown, when the stars fall, when the hills are moved, when the camel big with young are abandoned, when the wild beasts are herded together, when the seas rise, when the soul, even in English, this goes. When the souls are reunited, when the girl child, I'll tell you about that next time, that was buried alive is asked, for what sin was she slain? When the pages are laid open, when the sky is torn away, when the hell is lighted, and the garden is brought near. Now, there are 13, you have garden. What is that in Arabic, 13? In the garden, 13, line 13. What is it? Well, I don't know what it says. I'm asking you.
But it doesn't say garden, it says heaven.
It says paradise?
They don't use garden, they don't use garden.
They say when heaven? Oh, well, what is the word that you have there? Is it?
I don't know in Arabic. It says
Oh,
garden
what do you have?
translation. It says Jannah.
It says Jannah? Okay. Okay, good. So you say that doesn't mean garden as such. Okay, then this translation is wrong, but we'll have to...
But this one says garden as well.
Yeah, I know. Everyone thinks it means garden. But anyway, then every soul will know what it hath made ready. Again, what it has sent before it. Works. What it hath made ready. Oh, but I call to witness the planets, the stars which rise and set, the close of night. Again, the night imagery, the fact that it's all night vigils and caves. The breath of morning until morning. This is in truth the word of an honored messenger. Again, the Rasul, the messenger imagery. Mighty, established in the presence of the Lord of the throne. I'll tell you about the Lord of the throne next time. It's in Kabbalah. To be obeyed and trustworthy. And your comrade is not mad. Oh, you people think this is ravings of a lunatic? This is not. Surely he beheld him in our clear horizon, and he's not avid of the unseen, nor is this the utterance of a devil, worthy of stoning. Whither then go ye? This is naught else than a reminder unto creation, unto whom of you are willing, walk straight. Walking straight is an image, as you will attest now, that goes through all the Dead Sea Scrolls. It has to do with making a straight way in the wilderness, walking not to the right or to the left, walking straight. And you will not unless Allah willeth. And you will not do it unless Allah willeth, the Lord of creation. And one more verse, the next one, again, 82, the cleaving. The name of Allah, the Beneficent and the Merciful, when the heaven is cleft asunder, when the planets are dispersed, when the seas are poured forth, when the sepulchres are overturned, then the soul will know what it hath sent before it. What has it sent before it? Good works. And what is left behind? Oh man, what hath made thee careless concerning the Lord? Manifold created thee, fashioned thee, proportioned thee into whatsoever form he would, casteth thee. Nay, but deny not the judgment. Lo, there are above you guardians. We've heard about them, generous in recording, who know all that you do. Lo, the righteous will be in delight, and the wicked will be in hell fire, and they will burn on the day of judgment. And he will not have sent thence, and we will convey unto you the day of judgment. Again, what will convey unto you what the day of judgment is? A day in which no soul has power on any other, no intercession. And the absolute command is Allah, period. No Jesus, no Buddha, no anything else. Allah rules the day of judgment, and his command is absolute, and he decides, and you. So this is really stark, really straightforward works righteousness. You guys will come next time and read us a little of this in Arabic, okay? I'd like to hear those two surahs in Arabic, if you would. That'll help us. If you can make a note of those two surahs and read it to us, we'd like to hear it. See you next time. Thanks.